Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Madison Realty Capital, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, AmTrust Title, Customers Bank, Ariel Property Advisors, Capital One Bank, Sterling National Bank, Marks Paneth LLP, Meridian Capital Group. Additional funding has been provided by grants from Amarant Bank, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, B6 Real Estate Advisors, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Citizens Bank, Collins Building Services, CPEX Real Estate Services, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Matone Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, RPW Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Merringore Family Foundation, and these friends. Long Island City, a great place, great market, great for industrial, potentially office, definitely residential, studios, possibly life sciences, got hit with a bullet. Everybody thought that Long Island City was going to be the future home of Amazon. Today it was here, gone tomorrow. So today, my guests are going to provide their insight in saying what's going to happen to Long Island City, because in the same way as my apple, which is shiny, Long Island City is going to be shiny. So my guests they include Joe Farkas, who is the founder and CEO of Metropolitan Realty Associates, Eric Benim, who is the CEO and founder of Modern Spaces, and last but not least, my friend Tommy Donovan, who is the co-chairman and principal at B6 Real Estate Advisors. So Eric, ever since the Amazon change of the world, today I want the, as we would say, the reality or the emis. How do you see the residential market in Long Island City, and who's going to take it? Because I think it's still strong and builders are still building, right?
The market was great 3 months ago prior to Amazon, and it'll continue to be great. People just didn't start building because of Amazon. They've been building there for 12, 13 years. The neighborhood, as you know, was rezoned thanks to Bloomberg in 2003, and then since then it's been really a big boom. We probably have now about 6,000 or 7,000 units in the pipeline that's going to be hitting the market over the next 3 years. So that hasn't stopped. Amazon hasn't really spurred any new development or hasn't stopped any new development.
When the announcement of Amazon was made public, what happened was people were running to have the opportunity to buy an apartment because there's limited condos, okay? I'm not certain if it was Amazon that created it. I think it was a perceived perception of people around the community, because when you were on my show, you said that they were from people from Flushing. They weren't people from other parts of they were people saying, you know, I want to move from Flushing or I want to come to Long Island City. What has happened over the last couple of weeks?
You're correct. I think when a lot of people don't realize that when the news first broke out, it was all over the world. It was literally all over the country and all over the world. So within that 4, 5, 6 weeks, the neighborhood was literally on the global map. And because of that, we did have a rush. You typically November, December is probably the slowest time of year for residential. But we also had a lot of people who were on the sidelines who were just taking their time to pull the trigger on units. And they decided, you know what, maybe now's a good time to pull the trigger. So that happened, and once the press stopped in January, it went back to normal. The last couple of weeks, obviously a little disappointing news that Amazon decided to pull out. This past week, so it's been like a week and a half, I guess, or a week since the news happened. This past weekend, we had 19 more inquiries than we did a week before. Just yesterday, we got somebody who bought a unit during the Amazon hype and now wants to buy a more expensive unit in the same building.
Joe, you had two prime warehouses, which could have been used for industrial, could have been used for retail, which is definitely needed in Long Island City. What do you see taking place, in Long Island City today, and what are the greater opportunities that you see?
So much good is going on. I mean, the departure of Amazon is clearly not the end for Long Island City. Maybe the end for some political careers, but it's not the end for where Long Island City is going. Really in the infancy of its development. The industrial market is booming in Long Island City. You mentioned 2 industrial buildings. I sold 1 building. It's an interesting story. We got into contract at an enormous price, something that we couldn't believe we could sell the building at, and this is pre-Amazon. We had the opportunity after the big announcement that Amazon was coming to not sell the building. And we recognized quickly, Amazon's not changing how the industrial market is viewed in Long Island City simply by building some office space. And we recognized the opportunity to trade at a healthy price, and there was plenty of people behind them at the same price. Nobody cared if Amazon was there or wasn't there. We traded. Ultimately, it was the right move. And the industrial business on Long Island City is going to continue to be strong. The investment sales market is going to be strong because of the logistics play that everyone's looking at, last mile delivery. There's no better location than Long Island City for distribution into New York City, for distribution parts east, Jamaica and Long Island, and then anywhere you want to be throughout the boroughs, whether it be Brooklyn or the Bronx. The dynamics of transportation are incredible. So we see that happening. The thing that we'd like to see more of is political intervention to make tenants know that the REAP, very important.
I think, I want to explain to my audience what the REAP benefits are. People aren't aware of what the REAP benefits are. Want to say that?
Sure. So the REAP is a relocation assistance program that the City of New York provides to attract tenants, and typically it's for tenants that are moving out of Manhattan or coming from outside of the city to the boroughs, and it provides them dollars to assist them in their relocation. A tenant can receive, and if you listen to this number, up to $15 per square foot to offset their rent by moving from a location either outside of Manhattan or outside of the state and come to Long Island City. But it's not only Long Island City, it's the Bronx and Brooklyn. It's an enormous benefit that expires or is now set to expire in 2020. It was just renewed about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. It's very important that the word be out that the REAP is going to be renewed.
Right, because many companies, especially with Tishman Speyer's Jack's building over there, companies relocated because of the extensive REAP benefits.
The most important part to that is it takes large companies, not to say as large as Amazon, but it takes large companies 2 years of planning to make that kind of relocation wherever they're coming from, and they have to know with certainty that those benefits are going to be there. So a tenant that's starting a search in the middle of 2019 concerning themselves, is the REAP going to be there in 2020, or if their representative, their broker, whoever is representing them, their consultants on the move, they can't say for certain it's going to be there when you're ready to sign a lease. It's very important that the word gets out and that the law is stated. We've got another 5-7 years of REAP benefits.
So when you're selling properties in Long Island City, today and in the past, have you emphasized the REAP benefits?
On investment sales, it doesn't really come into play that much. I think it's more on the leasing and relocation basis.
No, I agree. But if you're selling a industrial building which has been converted to office over there, or even if you're selling an industrial building, there are jobs being created, so the REAP benefits, or it hasn't been really a big market.
It hasn't been a big tool as far as just on a straight brick by brick sale. I think that's more of the planning of why people would look there
Yes.
and pay those extra numbers that Joe was mentioning earlier.
Correct.
You know, when he said he sold his property for an exorbitant number, I think we all could agree that Long Island City is selling at a high rate, not necessarily because of Amazon, but because of the location, and it's still in its infancy stages.
Correct.
There's still a big way to go for
I
retail services that need to come there that will really enhance the quality of life
You know,
there.
I think something which I brought up in the green room, which I've been emphasizing quite a bit, is Long Island City, is a 5-minute ride by car, or you can walk over the bridge to Roosevelt Island. With the expansion of Cornell Tech, there is, and the auxiliary services from Cornell Tech and all the jobs over there, there is a dire growth need that can take place on the water in Long Island City or Astoria nearby that's going to take care of some of the space, okay? Some of the Plaxall space may come into being used in life sciences or other things. Have you seen this, or has that been brought into consequence?
Well, again, it's a combination of everything. There's a real need for retail. There's a need for, as Joe said earlier, parking. There's a need for office space. There's a need for better spaces. You know, we were selling a loft building that an architect was looking to take one floor, and they're looking to put some kind of medical on others. Which really didn't exist in Long Island City 10, 12 years ago. It was manufacturing, and it's kind of going into more of a technology and artistic, I guess.
I think more to your point, though, in terms of investment sales, is the recent transaction of the Bindery building where Brickman sold their property. It was 170,000 square foot former industrial building.
Alexandria.
That Alexandria purchased for another big price, and that's life sciences, Michael, coming to the neighborhood.
I think the specific point on that is, when Alexandria went to First Avenue, okay, on the 28th Street, they built one building there, and they're building the second building. It's a very big business, life science, because of all the medical schools in New York.
Sure.
The pharmaceutical companies.
Cornell Tech.
Cornell Tech, as I emphasized.
Yeah, exactly.
My current landlord for my new office, GFP Properties, they're building right across the street. They announced it a couple months ago from Citicorp building. They're investing $240 million for a life science center in Court Square. Nobody's really talking about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the Long Island City Partnership is talking about life sciences.
Yes.
They're promoting it at a recent Long Island City Partnership event. I would say all the major Boston developers came to the event to talk about what they
Boston
can do.
is the life science headquarters of the country.
Life science heaven.
Long Island City, is part of the 8,700 opportunity zones within the country. Some of the development sites that you've sold or are available are in Long Island City. What's happening? Has the opportunity zone concept helped Long Island City?
Concept, yes, but from what I've understood, there hasn't been a tax return filed with one of them, so no one knows what the real dollar per dollar.
100%. There's a lot of hype in the opportunity zones. The biggest problem that I explain to people is that predominantly real estate owners and developers like to have the capability to sell when they want to sell. Under the opportunity zone situation, it's a 10-year hold, and that's a very long time for people in the real estate business. Perhaps people who are making money from their capital gains in the stock market, they may look at it in a different manner.
Well, one other issue with the opportunity zones that people have to look at closely is that they need to invest as much capital into the project as much as they purchased the property for. So it doesn't work for every building you see in Long Island City or any opportunity zone for that matter.
It's a huge cash requirement.
Yeah.
And if you're taking any kind of limited partnership money or secondary financing, those funds have a 5 to 7 year lifespan. So you can't go 10 years. So it's a lot of single property
single
funds
users.
where if you commingle some funds together, they said everybody has to have the same 10-year horizon or longer, and that's a different generation in our business.
Joe brought up, and so did Tom, brought up the retail. Are we seeing more retail coming to Long Island City?
We definitely are seeing a lot more retail. We just did a deal. We do retail, and we just did a deal a couple weeks ago for like a spa. And we're seeing a lot of more services like that, which are not really needed. We have maybe, I guess, a half a dozen retail listings right now, which we're in negotiation for somebody else who wants to do like restaurants. So we're getting a lot of restaurants and spas and places like that right now.
You have a 3-star Michelin. You have M. Wells over there in Long Island.
Excellent restaurant, by the way. But talking about retail for a minute, one of the things, again, trying to spur the neighborhood and bring life and go beyond Amazon is the need for retail. Long Island City is probably the most underserved borough in New York City for its retail component. And retail has changed. It's not all about small shops. There are a lot of nationals that I speak with across the country that all want to come to Long Island City or New York City and the metropolitan area in general. The properties aren't there for them. These aren't 3,000, 2,000 square foot users. You have 15,000, 20,000 square foot boxes that unfortunately, because of two issues, can't come. They either don't have the real estate that can support the zoning for retail over 10,000 feet because of M-zone restrictions, or worse, there's parking restrictions, and we mentioned parking a little bit, put on these properties that don't allow for the amount of parking that big supermarkets needs. We'll take Whole Foods, for example. We'll take BJ's or Costco. Parking is a big part of what these retailers, the national retailers, look at. It may not be so New York City centric anymore because everybody's
But what
in
about
cars, not in cars.
What's happened in Manhattan? I think right now there are 14 Targets. Okay, Targets in Brooklyn are 100,000 square feet. In Manhattan, there's a 9,000 square foot Target.
Target Expresses, I think they're called.
Pardon me?
Target Expresses, I think they're called.
Right. So,
sure, that's the 9,000 feet is getting below that threshold.
Right. So I could see, one of the needs is the Target Express, the 9,000 square feet.
They're actually shopping around in Long Island City. They've been shopping around, putting offers on various places in Long Island City, Target.
Lower level spaces as well.
When Citigroup moved to Long Island City close to 40 years ago, they were an anomaly. There was nothing there, but they were at Court Square, right on the train station, in a great location, and also a 10-minute ride to their other headquarters over on 53rd Street. Right now, we have Tishman Spires property, which is 100% leased because of WeWorks and because of Macy's, Bloomingdale's.
That's an outstanding
Okay,
deal.
so which is great for Long Island City. What are your thoughts of who might move into the Citicorp building?
So I honestly think because of the Jack's building, so Bloomingdale's / Macy's took about 856,000 square feet. They're moving their HQ. No one's talking about Bloomingdale's HQ coming to Long Island City, but they're moving their HQ over there, 1,500 employees. What's also been happening in Long Island.
Right, but I guarantee you, part of the decision to move them into Long Island City was the REIT benefit.
No, yes, for sure.
There's no question.
No question about that.
Look at the significant savings and they're
100
going to have on profits for
100%.
a company.
But other companies that have been coming here for the last 3 years, you have Barney's, you have Diane von Furstenberg, you have J. Crew, you have
Estee
Ralph
Lauder
Lauren,
just
you have all the fashion companies, and I think like
Ralph
maybe,
Lauren, right?
yeah, all these fashion companies are in Long Island City now. And 6 months ago, they just rezoned the fashion district. What do you think is going to happen? All those companies are going to end up leaving because those developers are going to put high rises or super talls. They're all going to start coming to Long Island City now.
Where do you see?
I think if the REIT benefit's not reinstated or extended, it's going to be hard to fill that B space for extended numbers. So you'll see a lot of small 5,000, 10,000 square foot tenants coming in, but you're not going to see the 800,000 foot, 500,000
But
foot.
that's something, that's a big perception. With the exception of Long Island City and their office market, the Brooklyn office market doesn't get a 100,000 square foot office tenant. Most of the tenants in the Brooklyn office market are small tenants.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that growth over there.
It's challenging. The borough markets are challenging. We need more benefits to attract the larger tenants to come to Long Island City. REAP is just one of them. You have to make sure that the ICAP programs, the ICIP programs, and all the
Why don't you explain what
utility
the
programs.
ICIP?
Well, they're just taxes. They're relief on taxes for investing money in your building, either on capital improvements, tenant improvements, or it's just outright building. And for tenants to come or landlords to do this work, they need incentive. It just doesn't happen. It's very expensive to build, more so now than ever before, and rents have to be there. To build office product, you need to have supportable rents. The city can help that by offering tenants the REAP benefits and the rest of the packages that were offered to Amazon. So my whole thing is just get out in front of it. Just be proactive about what you're selling to outside tenants to come to New York City. New York City is the greatest place in the world. We are open for business. We had a short-sighted group of politicians blow up a deal. It's not the end of the world for New York City or Long Island City, but it is a lesson, and everybody should take hold of the lesson. The lesson is get out ahead, make sure our airports are awesome. Amazon was coming to New York City. They had 2 major airports within 10 minutes of their location, which beat the heck out of the West Side. It took 45 minutes off their commute to get to an airport. That's enormous. Make sure our infrastructure is in good shape. That was another big issue that Governor Cuomo was getting out ahead of, putting in a bill for, I forget the amount of money.
$180 million.
$180 million to improve the city's infrastructure. We need buses in Long Island City. Get the buses on the road. Do some beautification. Everything that the governor and the mayor heard about why Amazon was coming and what they needed is what should be put forth today. So in 2 years, when the next behemoth wakes up, and sure as the day is long, the next behemoth is waking up and saying, I want to be in Long Island City. Let's be ready for them. Let's be ready, and let's be proactive.
In the same manner that when Jet, which is owned by Walmart, went into Hoboken, Hoboken never expected Jet to go over there. I could see a company like Jet, who is in the similar distribution business to Amazon, look at Long Island City as a potential place, not as a headquarters, but as a last mile place.
Yes, but just remember one difference. The Amazon effect on Long Island City was not an industrial effect. The Long Island City effect from Amazon was an office effect. So Long Island City is not losing the appeal from industrial investors. We need to backfill it with people that want to create jobs.
Okay, speaking of that,
I think the other Amazon effect, excuse me, but I think the other Amazon effect is that it literally put Long Island City on the global map.
Correct.
Everybody in the
100%.
world knows about Long Island City now.
you know something? It's like when they were building the Wheel in Staten Island, one of the programs that New York City and Co., the marketing for the city of New York, was doing was talking about the Wheel and the Empire Shops over there. New York City could not pay for this publicity of Long Island City being created without the Amazon effect.
Right. Long Island City couldn't pay for it.
But I think people fail to remember that Long Island City has been the home of the Kaufman Astoria Studios close to 45 years, okay? Silver Cup Studios for years, another studio. So what's going on over there? Long Island City is the studio capital of New York City today. It always has. Brooklyn Navy Yard has Steiner Studios, but Long Island City has the availability and much better transportation that you don't have. Who's living in the apartments in Long Island City? What's the demographics of the renter and the purchaser in Long Island City? That's
young,
your market.
Yes, 20, 30, 40-somethings, a lot of young families. About 10 to 15% of our buyers or renters are empty nesters. We have a huge demand of people coming from Flushing. Long Island City has a 7 train. It goes to Manhattan. It also goes to Flushing. So we have a lot of that market who's been tapping in. A lot of students also, or people who just got their first job and they want to live like in Queens Plaza. A lot of the people who are like college students or get their first job, the early 20-somethings, are living like in Tishman Spires building, Jackson Park. They're living in Simon Barron's building, the Alta. They're living in all these buildings over there by Queens Plaza because it's really transportation rich over there. And then we have more, when you're in Court Square and in the waterfront, you have a lot of families. I mean, I live in Court Square with my family. I love it over there.
What about public schools? Part of what Amazon was doing was the building of a school. Are the public schools going to stay?
There's so many public schools. There's probably now, I would think, in the last 10 years, probably 6 or 7, and there's another 3 or 4 in the pipeline. TF Cornerstone is building 2. Gotham is building 1, and then there's another one slated for Court Square.
So don't worry about the schools. The schools are there.
Yeah.
And the schools.
The first big business in Long Island City is real estate. The second big business is kids. So any business, and the third is walking dogs. Any business with a kid is killing it in Long Island City.
Long Island City still has the cool factor. There's still
the edgy factor.
Edge factor. They still have the cool loft building next to the studio, next to the luxury building. So people say they live in like a cool vibe place, where the Upper East Side got a little bit sleepy. a lot of dogs there as well, but there's still that cool factor where you could go, have a little bit of an edge, go get a drink, or have something, and it's just not, it hasn't matured enough to be considered passé.
And if you fail to remember that when you look over the water from Long Island City, you see hospital row, as we would say. You have the Rockefeller University, you have New York Cornell Medical Center, you have the Cancer Center over there, and you have Memorial Sloan. So all of that, okay, and that section of the area doesn't have enough capability to meet the demands. So the positive is that Long Island City is strong. The good publicity that came out of it, that people learned about Long Island City that they hadn't, because immediately on the day that the announcements, I think Fox had hours and hours of people being interviewed in Long Island City of what they thought about the negatives. And as opposed to the negatives, I'd like to say, Apple, you are shining, and you're shining for the city of New York, and you're also shining for Long Island City. And I think the three of you and I are firm believers in Long Island City.
Yes, sir.
It's going to grow.
Yes,
It's going to continue to survive. And you know what? In a similar manner, I remember when I did shows right after 9/11, a couple months later, people saying, I would never go down to live in Lower Manhattan. I wouldn't be there. Look what happened to Lower Manhattan. Look at what's happened with the survival and strength of New York City.
Excellent point.
And
Yes.
I'd like to thank my guests today, Mr. Joe, Eric, and Tommy. I know, how could I forget Tommy? And I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.